left of a man when everything he does is just to be loved? What happens to the one who gives his soul in exchange for crumbs of attention? Isn't love, when born from neediness, nothing but a slow form of suicide?
He who lives to please dies forgotten by himself. Emil Cioran. This phrase cuts like a razor, because it reveals a truth that many men don't have the courage to face. You weren't rejected for being too good. You were rejected because you stopped being yourself, trying to become what she said she wanted. Have you ever felt that? That no matter how hard you try, being kind, present, understanding, something in her still remains unreachable, as if every gesture of yours were invisible, and what she truly desired was exactly what you repressed just to please her. So tell me, why are so many men who do everything right discarded without a second thought? Why does she say she wants security but falls in love with chaos? Why does she praise you but desire someone else? Yes, this video is about female psychology, but above all, it's about male fragility, about men who live as emotional orphans, seeking in a woman's affection an identity they never built on their own. Men who confuse approval with love, affection with acceptance, presence with power. They're not evil, they're just lost, and that's why they are the first to be crushed by what they idealize the most, romanticism. Carl Jung once said, "What we deny in ourselves controls us." And many men deny anger, desire, instinct in the name of a plastic sentimental ideal that only leaves them even more vulnerable to rejection. They deny themselves it until they disappear. But the female psyche senses it. She feels when a man is molding himself too much. She perceives, even unconsciously, when he trades his essence for obedience. And that kills desire. Let's dive into the underworld of behavior. Let's tear away the veils of social discourse and touch what is real and therefore brutal. Don't expect politically correct advice, expect a mirror that, if you dare to face it, will show you exactly why she doesn't desire you, and maybe teach you never again to beg for what should be born from your presence and not your performance. Take a deep breath. The journey is about to begin, and only those who break free from the illusion survive what's to come. Do you remember the first time you believed that loving was enough? Maybe it was as a child when you watched some movie where the hero did everything right and in the end was rewarded with the heart of the woman he loved. Or maybe it was as a teenager when you tried to impress that girl with flowers, long messages, and sincere promises, and she disappeared as if you were invisible. Since then, something inside you has tried to solve a riddle. Why does being good never seem to be enough? That is what we call the romantic illusion. And it is a trap perfectly designed for men who still seek outside themselves what they never found within. This illusion is born from the belief that love is a logical equation. If I do this, then she will love me. But female psychology doesn't follow logic. It follows mood, atmosphere, energy. The man who thinks he can win a woman through effort is the same one who tries to keep a candle lit by blowing harder, and then wonders why the flame went out. It's not about playing games, it's about instinct. A woman doesn't want an actor playing the role of the perfect man. She wants the tension of the real, the mystery of what hasn't yet been unveiled, the presence of someone who doesn't need validation to exist. But the weak man, the one who believes in the romantic illusion, cannot handle that emptiness. He panics in the face of silence. He interprets every absence as rejection, every uncertainty as failure, and so he adapts, he yields, he empties himself. Little by little, he reshapes his words, his manners, his tastes, his opinions, just to fit in. And in the very moment when he finally believes he is doing everything right, she begins to drift away. Not because she is cruel, but because she lost what once attracted her, the living presence of a man who inhabited his own body. Now what remains is an echo, an obedient reflection, a domesticated prince. And the truth is, and contrary to what romance novels say, a woman doesn't want to domesticate anyone. She wants to surrender. But only to someone who does not kneel. This is the tragedy of weak men. They don't realize that the more they try to please, the less they are felt. The more predictable they become, the less they awaken desire. And the more they expect recognition, the deeper they sink into resentment. They love expecting a reward. They desire expecting gratitude, and they confuse control with connection. But love is not that. Love is risk. It is uncertainty. It is a symbolic battlefield where a man must enter whole, not to win but to avoid losing himself. As Nietzsche wrote, the true man wants two dangers, the abyss and the woman. But the weak man fears both. He builds walls, he makes plans, he protects himself, and in this attempt to avoid suffering, he kills his own fire. He thinks being predictable means being reliable, but to the female psyche, predictability is not security. It is boredom. She longs to feel alive, to be pierced by something greater than pretty words. She wants intensity, emotion, even a bit of madness. And there lies the key. It's not about being perfect, it's about being real, and the real at times is uncomfortable, flawed, restless. But that is what attracts, because what moves, pulses. The romantic illusion destroys weak men because it keeps them dreaming of a love that doesn't demand effort, but sacrifice, and not a noble sacrifice like protecting or caring, but the sacrifice of themselves. The man who believes in this illusion begins to live for female approval. He measures his worth by the attention he receives, and each silence from her becomes a death sentence for his emotions. But there is a way out, and it doesn't lie in learning seduction techniques or cheap manipulation. It lies in shattering the mirror you look into every day when you ask yourself, why doesn't she want me? The real question is another. Why did you stop wanting yourself? Need has a scent. It reveals itself in the anxious gaze, in the message sent too quickly, in the way a man erases himself before even being asked to. A woman feels it. She may not even know how to name it, but she feels it. Because when a man needs too much, he stops being chosen. He becomes tolerated. And what begins as affection slowly turns into obligation. The weak man, and here again, I don't speak of physical strength, but of inner weakness, reshapes himself. He squeezes into a version he believes is ideal. He changes his tone of voice, hides his discomforts, agrees with everything, all to keep near the woman he doesn't truly love, but depends on, because real love is only born where there is freedom. And need is the very opposite of that. Have you noticed how women drift away from men who are too available? The ones who say yes before the question is even asked, who are always there, waiting, willing, docile. It's not because they want to be mistreated, as many like to believe. It's because a man without his own life sends a silent message. Without you, I fall apart. And no one wants to be responsible for carrying someone else's existence on their back. Female psychology rejects, almost instinctively, anything that comes with the weight of emotional obligation. A woman may even be touched by your devotion, by your care, by your exaggerated love. But if she feels that all of it comes from fear of losing her, and not from your own inner abundance, she will leave. Maybe slowly, maybe suddenly, but she will, and you'll ask yourself, why? I did everything, I gave everything, I was everything. But that is exactly the problem. You were everything, except yourself. Need makes a man ignore his own boundaries. He says yes when he wanted to say no. He hears insults and responds with flowers. He senses contempt, but pretends it's just PMS, because he is terrified of being rejected. He prefers the pain of humiliation to the pain of absence, and that makes him predictable, fragile, and over time invisible. A woman, on the other hand, feels drawn to what subtly confronts her, to the man who doesn't revolve around her, who has his own projects, his own silences, his own presence. It's not about arrogance, but about structure, about a straight spine, about not falling apart at every crooked look or prolonged silence, because desire does not spring from neediness, it springs from tension, from the meeting of two whole beings, not from one trying to fill the emptiness of the other. The man who lives in constant need becomes emotionally dysfunctional, and worse, he begins to demand from the woman what he cannot even give himself, attention, care, validation, and she, little by little, begins to feel exhausted, as if she were being drained. And she is. Because a relationship where one loves only to be loved back, and not because he is overflowing, is a relationship destined to collapse. The price of need is silent, but relentless. You don't realize you're paying it until everything has already been emptied. First, she loses the sparkle in her eyes. Then she starts responding with less enthusiasm. Meetings become rarer, conversations drier, and you think you need to do even more, to give even more. When in truth what she needs is space, mystery, a man who knows how to sit in silence without begging for attention. Being too necessary is being disposable, because anyone who shows they cannot be fine alone will never be seen as a choice, but as a dependence, and no one desires what suffocates. A woman wants to feel. She wants to be touched by something invisible, unexpected, intense, and need steals exactly that, the mystery, the unpredictability, the dance. A man desperate for love does not invite her to dance. He begs not to be left on the floor. But desire is not born from pity. It is born from impact, from the subtle threat of loss, from the presence that does not bow. The man who overcomes emotional need becomes rare, and therefore desirable, because his presence doesn't come with demands or emotional blackmail or that desperate urgency to be loved. He is there because he chose to be, and if he leaves, he goes without making a scene, because he has learned that he doesn't need anyone to be whole, and that, to the female unconscious, is as attractive as it is uncontrollable. It's strange to think that many women stay with men who make them cry, while rejecting those who swore to make them smile. But even stranger is pretending this doesn't happen. You've probably lived through this. She said she wanted peace, stability, honesty. And you offered all of that. Every gesture of yours was an attempt to show her you were different, that you were safe, that you would never make her suffer. And yet, she felt nothing. Or worse, she felt boredom, coldness, exhaustion. The uncomfortable truth is that female desire is fueled by emotion, and emotion rarely grows out of predictability. The man who does everything right sparks admiration, but not necessarily passion. And that's what most men don't understand. You can be the perfect guy, but if you don't trigger in her a visceral reaction, confusion, doubt, enchantment, anger, excitement, fear of losing you, you'll just become another one, another friend, another nice guy, another one she respects, but doesn't desire. A woman desires what moves her inside, and many times that includes drama. The problem isn't the drama itself, it's what it represents. Life, uncertainty, emotional intensity. She wants to feel, she wants you to throw her off balance, to create tension, to push her out of her comfort zone. And that's why, paradoxically, many get involved with emotionally dangerous men. Not because they love suffering, but because suffering in that context is just a byproduct of something greater, inner movement. The right guy doesn't spark that. He is static, correct, polite, too ready. And desire, that fierce and instinctive animal, doesn't live in cages. It needs rough ground to run. That's where disdain begins. When a woman realizes the man in front of her is willing to do anything not to be rejected, something breaks. It's not rational, it's biological. She tests, she provokes, she disrespects, subtly, and he stays there, justifying, forgiving, accepting. Disdain is born out of that total surrender, from the man who erases himself to keep someone else's flame alive. And no woman, no matter how compassionate, respects a man who erases himself in the name of love. The problem isn't loving, it's loving as if you're begging for survival. And then the cycle repeats. The man tries harder and harder. She pulls further and further away. He thinks he needs to do even more. And she begins to feel ashamed of him, ashamed that he doesn't love himself, that he doesn't stand his ground, that he has no boundaries. And that's the point of no return. Because disdain, unlike anger, can't be fixed. Anger is still a form of connection. But disdain kills any possibility of rescue. A woman may forgive you for being unstable. She may forgive you for being difficult, impulsive, even cruel, if there's truth behind it. But she won't forgive you for having no structure. And structure isn't being cold, it's having a center. It's being able to say no, even when you're afraid of losing her. It's being able to walk away and not crawl back. Because female desire, mysterious as it may seem, is clear on one point. She only gives herself to the man who knows he doesn't depend on her. Drama awakens, desire connects, but the absence of boundaries rots everything. The man who survives a woman's intensity isn't the one who pleases her. It's the one who confronts her, the one who holds her by the waist firmly but isn't afraid to let go if needed. Because deep down, she doesn't want someone who bends to her emotions. She wants someone who can bear their weight without collapsing, someone who looks her in the eyes and says, "I desire you, but I won't beg for you." Most men don't understand women, and the problem isn't just lack of information, it's pride, it's resistance, it's an unconscious refusal to accept that the feminine universe operates under laws that defy linear, Cartesian, masculine logic. They try to love a woman as if she were a spreadsheet, and they end up being destroyed by forces they can't even name. It's like trying to have a conversation with a storm. The female psyche doesn't organize itself like a manual. It's a symbolic, emotional, intuitive field. It's made of cycles, variations, psychic states in constant mutation. The man who insists on dealing with it using only rationality will be swallowed, sooner or later, by the abyss he refused to cross. And the abyss here takes the form of silence, of disinterest, of sudden distance, of disdain without explanation. Because the feminine is nature, and nature, as Jung once said, never hurries, yet everything is accomplished. To understand the feminine is to recognize that it doesn't respond to the logic of deserving, but to the logic of resonance. It doesn't matter what you offer. What matters is what you awaken. A woman responds to what you carry, not to what you say. She feels your wounds, your insecurity, your posture, and she reacts not with calculation, but with instinct. That's why so many men are swallowed by relationships in which they completely lose themselves, because they never understood the kind of energy they were invoking. They didn't realize they were stepping into an archetypal ritual, not a fairy tale. She doesn't test you because she wants to punish you. She tests you because she needs to know if you can handle it, if you remain whole even when she falls apart, if you can bear the weight of the feminine emotional world without collapsing or retaliating. She provokes because she wants to feel your limit, not to destroy you, but to know that it exists. And if it doesn't, she will take its place. She will dominate, control, correct, a mother instead of a lover. And you, without realizing it, will become a grown child, waiting for approval from someone who actually wanted to be guided, not to lead. This is the modern tragedy. Women overexposed to emotionally absent men, and men who confuse sensitivity with submission. The female psyche longs for surrender, yes, but it longs even more for the presence of someone who knows how to remain steady even in chaos. Because the feminine, in its archetypal depth, is chaotic. It is the sea. It is the womb and the storm, and if you step into that sea without knowing how to swim, you drown. Not because she wanted it, but because you weren't ready. So the final question isn't, what does she want from me? But rather, what in me is still seeking to be saved by her? You're not here to decode her as if trying to crack a safe. You're here to become a man who no longer needs to be saved. And only then, only at that point of wholeness, will you truly be able to relate. Not as an orphan begging for comfort, but as a presence that does not bow. She will feel it. She always feels it. And in that instant she will respect you. Because finally, she has found someone who will not be consumed. Most men don't realize the exact moment they stopped being desired. It doesn't happen with shouting nor with dramatic farewells. It happens in silence, in the exchange of looks that loses its spark. In her breath that no longer shifts when you come close. It happens in her vacant stare while you're still speaking with hope. Because love, contrary to what you've been taught, doesn't die from lack of effort. It dies from excess of presence, of availability, of predictability. She didn't stop loving you because you were bad. She stopped loving you because you stopped being yourself, and you tried to become what she said she wanted, but couldn't feel. Weak men aren't only those who cry, they are those who betray themselves, those who abandon their own nature to fit the ideal of the woman they desire, and by doing so they become emotionally disposable, because the feminine, just like nature, respects what is wild, not what is domesticated. You can keep trying to understand women through words, or you can begin to feel them through energy. But before that, you must feel yourself. Return to your own body. Return to your own presence. The female psyche only destroys the weak man, because the whole man doesn't need to be saved, and for that very reason, he is the only one who can truly be loved. Now tell me, with honesty, are you ready to be seen, even if it means no longer being accepted? It took me years to understand why some women would look at me with a spark in their eyes, and then suddenly treat me like I was just another guy. At first I blamed them. I told myself the world was wrong, that they didn't know what they wanted, that I was too good. But the truth is, I was simply too needy. Needy for myself. I didn't want to love, I wanted to be accepted. And I confused attention with love, compliments with worth, sex with healing. It took me a long time to realize that no one could give me what I hadn't built for myself. If you've made it this far, maybe it's because some part of you is tired of begging. And that's the beginning of a freedom you can't turn back from. Thank you for trusting me on this journey. Thank you for listening all the way through, even if some truths hurt more than you expected. Because here we don't speak to please, we speak to wake you up. And now that you're emotionally wrecked, How about clicking like? It's the least you can do, right? I'm here exposing my scars for you. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification or keep pretending you understand women while getting rejected by people who don't even remember your name, and those 2 videos showing up on the screen, well, let's just say one of them might save you from making the same mistake again. But I'm not telling you which one. Click and find out.